The Stamina Nightblade remains one of the hardest hitting, most rewarding and entertaining playstyles in The Elder Scrolls Online. In this video, I'm going to be going over the update for the Stamina Nightblade DPS build PvE for the Waking Flames DLC Update 31. We'll go over 3 different loadouts for gear, beginner, solo, and endgame, and which steps to take to progress for your goal. And with Update 32 Deadlands currently on the public test server, this build should work great even with upcoming changes to crit damage cap and new gear sets. Moreover, we'll discuss skills and how to swap out abilities in and out for your character depending on your playstyle. And the rest of the usual suspects like champion points, Mundus Stone, and more, but I want to discuss the strengths and weaknesses of the Stamina Nightblade along with the big question, what weapon should you choose and why? Should you play this build? Well, the ESO Stamina Nightblade PvE DPS is great for people trying to do solo and/or group content. It's very challenging yet rewarding and can be complex to play. The strength of the Nightblade, specifically Stamina, is its hard-hitting class abilities, and the ability Surprise Attack is one of the most fun main spammables in the game and is very rewarding. It has great resource sustain built within the class kit and top-tier melee damage. The cons is it's going to lack some self-healing that other classes and/or magic builds can have, along with difficult to play in melee because of so much damage going on at or around the bosses. The pros to me outweigh the cons and remains one of my favorite stamina DPS in the game. And if it appeals to you, let's answer the next big question is which weapon should you choose and why? For weapon choices, when it comes to it in ESO, there currently is no right answer. In fact, both 2H and Dual Wield have great active abilities and passives, and you can find top-tier damage builds using either or both. In fact, a lot of folks are now using double melee weapons, but I'm going to go with the more traditional route, Dual Wield and Bow, and let me explain what you should know about this choice. 2H and Dual Wield both have similar active abilities for survival, area damage, self-healing, and shielding. For instance, Brawler skill from the 2H gives us a massive bubble and AoE cleave damage, making it fantastic for survivability in melee range. While Dual Wield has Bloodthirsty, a single target spammable that heals you based on percentage of damage done. Two-hander has a great single target Executioner that is great for extended boss fights. While Dual Wield has Whirling Blade and AoE execute, good single target but insane area damage. And both have a strong AoE damage over time. 2H has Stampede and AoE Gap Closer that hits very hard, while Dual Wield has Deadly Cloak, AoE damage, and a major evasion buff. The reason I prefer Dual Wield is a passive, Twin Blade and Blunt, is great because it includes daggers, giving critical rating, critical chance, while the 2H does not have a dagger, only an axe giving critical damage bonus. However, a strength of the 2H, it does have the Battle Rush passive, giving massive recovery for stamina after killing a target, and is fantastic for new players. The too long didn't read summary is this. Both are good. I prefer an AoE execute and dagger loadout for my high critical on my Stamblade, but there are many that do very, very well with the two-hander. Moreover, I go with the back bar bow, reason being I enjoy the range, endless hail combination with Maelstrom weapons. And the Ballista ultimate from the bow comes in very handy during PvE solo encounters like Veteran Maelstrom Arena, and I just burn down bosses within seconds. I hope this makes sense that you can choose wisely, but again, 2H and Dual Wield are very close in nearly every category, making them a great choice regardless of which one you pick up. So here's the skill loadout I have for the Stamina Nightblade using the Dual Wield bow premise. The first ability up is Relentless Focus, a staple on your Stamina Nightblade and rewarding you for light, heavy attack weaving, building up the stacks and allowing you to fire off a spectral arrow doing a ton of damage. The key to using this is to close the distance to come into melee range, as it'll heal you for a lot when you're in melee range. And the nice thing about this is it's a 60-second uptime, so it's not something you're going to have to cast frequently, but consider using this preemptively before you start a fight. Next ability up is Deadly Cloak, AoE damage and AoE damage reduction. The strength of Deadly Cloak is it's good single target, it's insane in AoE situations. So you're going to want to maintain this just like you would a damage over time effect. Plus, major evasion is going to make you much tankier. The third ability up is Camouflage Hunter in what I consider my flex spot. Slotting it gives us minor berserk when we crit from the flank or behind, and ultimate generation via Fighters Guild passives Banish the Wicked, not to mention extra increased weapon damage for having it slotted. It's great for solo, especially when you're attacking from the flank and the side, and the extra ultimate gen is quite noticeable. Something that I flex out, depending on my skill level, is something like Consuming Trap from the World Soul Magic skill line. This is an incredible sustain tool that does a little bit of damage, but when you're starting out and you're new, you're not going to have a whole lot of healing typically. That's going to be provided by your gear sets, your champion points, or whatever else. So consider flexing Consuming Trap if you need more resource sustain and a little bit of extra healing when something dies. The fourth ability up is your spammable Surprise Attack, your incredible hard-hitting attack from the flank rewarding, and you're going to use this primarily between light attack weaves and when you're not applying your buffs or debuffs. There's a couple things you can flex out if you don't like the specific ability. Some folks like the Vatashram weapons, the daggers, and you're using Shrouded Dagger skill from the dual wield as your main spammable. This isn't an okay choice, but I've been kind of shying away from the Shrouded Daggers loadout and going in a different direction because I just like surprise attacks and it's functioned very well. Bloodthirst from dual wield is also a great main spammable when you're struggling with survivability, because remember, this is going to heal you based off the damage done. So you can swap this in for a surprise attack if you don't have Pale Order, you're struggling solo, and you just can't survive. Yes, it'll do less damage, but that's better than dying. Fifth ability up is Whirling Blades, AoE damage spammable and execute. It hits really hard, and typically I swap in Killer's Blade from the Nightblade if I'm doing just a single target fight, or if I struggle with survivability. Consider Whirling Blades a must around 25% boss health or lower, and or if you're trying to hit 2 or 3 more mobs. The ultimate of choice is Incapacitating Strikes. It's a low-cost ultimate that gives us a small burst window and extra resource sustain for slotting it. Incap Strength, in summary, is getting that burst window for a very low-cost ultimate. Our bar number 2 is Bow, and this is primarily used for damage over time and 1 heal. The first damage over time, one of our priorities, is Barb Trap. It's a trap that immobilizes proc minor force, increasing our crit damage done, and it's great single target. You're going to have to apply this trap in melee range, takes a second to arm, so the trick is trying to put it on the ground before a mob pops up, especially in melee arenas. Or as you close the distance, you're going to plop it down right on top of a boss. Razor Caltrops, it's good AoE, it's a snare, and it applies Major Breeze, reducing enemies' armor in a big, nasty AoE. So this is a great damage over time effect, both single target and AoE, and something that I keep up. Leeching Strikes is our resource sustaining tool, so you can keep this up at all times, and this is what really makes the Stamina Nightblade shine in terms of resource sustain. It's just insane to keep this up, and you can be so much survivable because you have just the stamina coming in at all times. Not to mention that it heals you, but you're going to want to make sure this falls off fully so you can get that restore of additional stamina and then recast and maintain. Endless Hail is our bow ability that we're going to use, and it's massive damage both single target and AoE, and is amplified from the Maelstrom bow. Pair Endless Hail with something like Razor Caltrops, and you have a massive amount of AoE damage just ticking away on mobs. Plus the timers sync up very well, making it easy to keep this rotation active. Echoing Vigor is our heal of choice. You can go with either. Resolving Vigor is quicker, more bursty, especially if it's solo, single play. Echoing is great because it heals others as well, including companions. So if you need a burst heal, go with Resolving, typically the PvP one. Echoing is better in a group, and or if you don't need a burst heal. Flawless Dawnbreaker is our ultimate on our back bar. It's a great option for massive burst damage, so you're going to cast it and then bar swap typically, and it's going to give you a lot of weapon damage for 20 seconds. So activating is going to be 300 weapon damage for 20 seconds, and a trick you can use is when you swap, if you're killing mobs with your Camo Hunter slotted, you're going to get ultimate back, not to mention taking a potion is going to give you 20 ultimate. So you can essentially use Flawless Dawnbreaker, kill a couple mobs, pop a potion, and use an end cap, allowing you to get crazy burst. One ability I flex out is Ballista from the bow. This is a single target incredible boss burn for something like Veteran Maelstrom Arena, because it's a quick channel, and that's exactly what you need for something like that, especially when playing solo. A single target, quick channel, a lot of damage. This is what I flex into those arenas. All right, so we've gone over the skills. So how do you actually use this? So essentially when you're playing the Stamina Nightblade, you want to pre-buff before you get into combat if you can. So the things you can pre-buff with are Relentless Focus and Leeching Strikes. And typically you're going to start in your back bar doing a Flawless Dawnbreaker when you're closing in range. And then you're going to apply your damage over time effects in order. Barb Trap, Razor Caltrops, Endless Hail, Bar Swap. Meanwhile, light attacking in between of those effects. You're going to get to your front bar, then you're going to apply Deadly Cloak. If you've done your light attacks, typically you can fire off an Assassin's Will at this point, and then start focusing on your main spammable rotation. Typically, you're only going to do 2, maybe 3 main spammables for a dot is going to fall off. So you're going to go back to your back bar, apply Caltrops, Endless Hail, maybe Barb Trap, go to your front bar. 1 or 2, Deadly Cloak, go back and Barb Trap. So you're going to kind of ping-pong back and forth, doing your light attack along with your main spammable as a filler in between your damage over time effects. Remember that your damage over time effects, when I say that, I'm talking about Deadly Cloak, Barb Trap, Razor Caltrop, Endless Hail. These things typically outperform your main spammable. So if they're down, it makes more sense to maintain them pound for pound because it will do more damage than a surprise attack cast. So light attack weave, fill that in, and then maintain those ground effects. And you're going to make sure that you're casting your end cap when you can in a single target instance, and your Flawless Dawnbreaker as soon as you can in a non-single target instance typically. Along with using potions on cooldown will help you with resource sustain and making sure your buffs are fully active. And that's the rotation. As we get to the gear section, it's important to note that Elder Scrolls Online will be adding a crit damage cap to Update 32 Deadlands to launch at the end of this year. This will essentially cap your crit damage at 125%, and you can find this in the advanced stats section in your character screen. Fully buffed with this build, we're at 101% critical damage and should be just fine using the solo or endgame gear loadout. But keep in mind, if you change gear, you'll need to look at this and keep an eye on this stat. As Update 32 goes live, Deadlands, you don't want to be 125% fully buffed or it's a wasted stat. We're going to start with the beginner, meant for the average player who can complete overland content and craft some basic gear. The first 5-piece we're going to go with is Briarheart. This is in Hrothgar and can also be bought on the traders, drops in delves, world bosses, and so forth. When you deal critical damage, you're going to increase your weapon damage by 450 for 10 seconds, and it's going to heal you when you critically strike. This pairs very, very well with almost every Stam class because the healing is quite noticeable, specifically on Nightblade and playing in melee. This is not endgame best in slot, but you can use it at the start and you can use it at endgame and get by with a lot of content. The downside is it can only occur every 15 seconds, so you can't essentially keep 100% uptime. But the fact that you can get it straight away, you can get it from traders, and it's super easy to obtain. Love this set. Next up is a craftable set, Hundine's Rage. It's 6 traits, Bankerai, Reaper's March, or the Rift, and you can purchase it on traders. It's just a well-balanced weapon damage, critical, and a little bit of stamina 5-piece that pairs very well with Briarheart, giving us more likelihood of doing crits, thus getting us some healing. It's going to be very useful starting out because that crit healing when you have that Briarheart proccing is very, very good. Now that leaves 2 weapons, and what I would go with is one of 2 choices. Typically agility, this is going to give you for 2 pieces a ton of max stamina, or you can go with endurance. Endurance is going to give you a ton of max health. Typically, you want to be about 20 to 22,000 health at endgame, CP 160, level 50 or higher. So you want to make sure you get that. If you're below and you're using parse food and you're at 18,000 health or so, you're just one heavy attack away from getting deleted. And so it's much more forgiving. So either go agility if you want a little bit more damage, or endurance if you want a little bit more survivability. Now you have those things, and your progression, your path to progress is essentially replacing Hundine's Rage as you can quickly, and or replacing your dual wield weapons with either a monster helm or another more powerful weapon set. So if you're looking to something to replace Hundine's Rage, I would typically look to Kinra's Wrath. It's a great group utility and single target damage set. You can find this in Black Drake Villa, one of the dungeons, and you can run on normal and get it. Togvin's Warband is another good set as well, along with Leviathan. And this is Crypt of Hearts 1 or 2, and it's essentially the Mother's Sorrow of stamina, and it's a very easy obtainable set. I would work on getting one or those 3 sets. And then your weapons, you can swap things in and out depending on what skills you're using. If you want to go the Vatishram main spammable different route, you can work towards collecting those weapons and using Shrouded Daggers as your main spammable and swap out for agility. You could also work on getting Black Rose Prison weapons and focusing on the Deadly Cloak, which you already have on your bar. Both are good options. Or you can work on focusing on getting a mythic like Harpooner's Kilt, which is going to add a ton of damage as long as you're not taking direct damage. Or a staple in a lot of my builds, Death Dealer's Fate, which is going to give you a lot of max stats when you're in combat for an extended period of time if Harpooner's is just not reliable. Working on these things in the dungeons will allow you to get a couple 5 pieces of weapons or Monster Helm's mythic combination that will allow you to complete trials. That's your goal. For solo, what I run is Briarhearts and Soul Zons. So Briarhearts, we already talked about that. Soul Zons is Rockgrove Trial, so this is the Blackwood chapter. Not everyone's going to have this, I understand that, but pound for pound, it's one of the strongest 5 pieces in the game if there's ads that you're constantly killing. And when you're playing solo, you're going to see the blue shiny on the corpses and get this, and it's going to be a 30-second buff and giving you tons of weapon critical and critical damage. It's just simply one of the strongest 5 pieces as long as there's reliable corpses. And when you're playing solo, there always is, because that 30 seconds is easy to maintain 100% uptime. Not everyone's going to have access to that, and another set I would go with is Vicious Serpent. Vicious Serpent can be obtained in Hellraw, Citadel, AA, or Sanctum, the Craghorn early trials. And what it's going to do is give you major expedition, increasing your movement speed, making you very, very fast, and give you a lot of stamina reduction and stamina when you kill things. Perfect for the beginner starting out and collecting some of these weapons from the solo arenas. So I'd pick one of those 5 pieces, I'd stick with Briarheart, Soul Zons, and that would leave one spot for a mythic. When you're playing melee and stamina, typically you use lack from self-healing, and that's where I would go with the mythic Pale Order. Pale Order is a pain in the butt to get a hold of, but it will dramatically increase your survivability and your ability to push the throttle down, especially when you're learning these fights. And then that would leave one piece, and I would go with Krogs. And this is from Fungal Grotto 1 Veteran. And the one piece physical penetration typically outweighs the Slime Crawl one piece critical. So pick a one piece that you like, but this is what I go with. If you don't have mythics and you need something just for simple survivability, there's a million sets. What I used to get trifecta runs without mythics was Engine Guardian. It's a very easy staple in a lot of my builds. It gives you a ton of resources and it can heal you as well. Another one that's really good is Scourge Harvester. So this is kind of an off-meta set, but if you need just straight up healing, you don't have mythics, you don't have fancy weapons, you can obtain this in Wayrest Sewer 2. Super easy, and it will heal you like a truck, especially when you're taking a lot of damage. Now, you've done some PvE, you've done some trials, you're ready for endgame loadout. So we're going to keep some of the things on that we already have. The most damage-producing 5-piece for stamina is no secret. It's Reliquance, perfected if you can. This comes from Cloud Rest Somerset Trial. Your light attacks and heavy attacks apply a stack of Harmful Wind to your target for 5 seconds. Harmful Wind deals physical damage per stack every 1 second. This effect can stack once every half second up to 10 stacks. At 10 stacks, this set will outperform almost anything, and it's an absolute staple in stamina DPS, though you can flex it out what I've mentioned earlier. And then it's going to leave one spot on your body to use Harpooner's Kilt if you're not taking a lot of direct damage and you want the most damage possible. And another set called Berserking Warrior, or also known as Advancing Yokuden, is from Hellraw Citadel, and it comes in heavy armor, so you're going to run it on jewelry and weapons. And when you deal martial melee damage, you increase your weapon critical up to 10 stacks as well. So that pairs very well with having weapons and jewelry, so they're not heavy armor and it's not influence your DPS. You have a Maelstrom back bar that you're going to amp up that Endless Hail. You have 1 mythic, 2 heavy hitter 5 pieces, and a Monster Helm. I do realize this is a complex setup, but I'm telling you right now, it's absolutely disgusting damage if you can pull it off. Now for the miscellaneous things in this build, I would highly recommend a Khajiit. It has crit damage, which is optimal for PvE, DPS, along with everything else you could want. Great max stats, has recovery across the board, and it just hits hard and it looks really, really cool. Next, I would pick an Orc. It's well-balanced stamina race for PvE and is great for PvP. The strength of the Orc is it's going to heal you. And if you're a new player and you struggle with survivability and melee, this is very, very noticeable. Paired with Briarhearts, it's even more noticeable. So it's a great all-around race if you want to swap in between PvE, PvP, and you want some survivability. Dumber is a really good race all around for damage. It lacks the crit and it lacks the resource sustain some of the others do. But what it does is it allows you to switch between magic and stamina very easy as well, and it's great PvP. For consumables, food choice is really just up depending on what you're playing. The Arterium's Takeaway Broth is going to give you the best all-around stats and sustain. If you're looking for something like Parse Food, Lava Foot Soup and Salt Trice is really, really good. Potions, I rock the weapon damage and weapon critical, so it's going to give you back all those things, and I use them on cooldown. For Mundus Stone, typically you're going to run the Shadow Mundus Stone if you're above 60% critical or higher. If you're below that, I would go with the Thief. As far as attribute points go, if you're watching this, I'd highly recommend around 22,000 health unless you're very experienced, and then you could go 18k with Parse Food if you're really, really good. But typically, if you're using Veteran Dungeons, Random Finder, you need a little bit more health because you need to be able to react. And if you miss one mechanic, one dodge, one heavy attack, you're just dead with 18,000. Champion points, I'm going to go over the slottables. And the 5 that pretty much everyone takes is Fighting Finesse, Deadly Aim, Master of Arms, and Backstabber in the Blue Warfare tree. The one I flex in and out is Backstabber. So if I'm playing solo or an uncoordinated group and I can't get behind a mob, I will take something else like Thaumaturge doing damage over time. If you're a new person, I would recommend looking into the Preparation passive within the Staving Death subconstellation. It's going to be your #1 priority because it drastically improves your survivability. In the red fitness tree, Bloody Renewal, Boundless Vitality, Expert Evasion, and Fortified. And the green doesn't affect performance really, but Steed's Blessing, Rationer, Liquid Efficiency, and Treasure Hunter. And that's what I go with, and kind of the staple in the build that I've been using is a Stam Nightblade. And you can do pretty much everything you want with this specific character and build. In the future, it should still work pretty well, and I'd recommend picking up the Stam Nightblade if you want one of the most fun playstyles and you love the rogue type feel. It just still to this day feels special, and I love sharing it with you. Thanks for watching.